Hello and welcome to another video. I think it's time for another Q&A session, so that's exactly what I'm going to do today, and I'm going to answer some of the questions that you guys have been sending in. So let's get to it. So the first question is, what is the basic theory behind not tuning with the button? I've done a video on this before and I'll put that above, but the general idea here is that if you're having to tune your bear shafts with your pressure button, you are just making them appear correctly tuned when they're not actually correctly tuned. So it's almost a fake tune in effect. So have a look at that video and make sure that when you're doing your tuning, you just use three main variables, and that is the arrow spine, the bow poundage, and then also the arrow length. And those three main things should get you in the rough ballpark, and then you can do some more fine tuning later on. Question number 2 is about the string picture and where should the string picture be on the bow or relative to the bow. So this one is actually a little bit individual in that some people might have the string picture on the window of the bow, some people might have on the side of the window of the bow, some people might have it on the side of the sight, and this is individual preference. The key thing here is to find a position of the string picture that means you can come into full draw and have the string on your face, and then when you expand, you don't want the string to move left and right. So this is the key thing here. As you expand, the string should stay still. It shouldn't move. If it moves left and right, then that's going to obviously cause your arrows to go left and right massively. So it's really, really important. At first, try this with a light bow in the mirror. Also try it maybe with your normal bow, but just again in the mirror or with some feedback, and find a position where you can expand without moving the string left or right. Another top tip for string picture while we're on the subject is, depending on the lighting and if you're shooting an indoor competition or an outdoor competition, you might want a different string. So for example, this also depends on your bow. If you have a black bow and you shoot with a black string and you're shooting indoors, it's going to be incredibly hard to see your string picture. So maybe in that example, if you've got a black bow and it's indoors, maybe you would want a white string, or maybe a bright green string might be a lot easier to see the string picture. If you're outdoors, sometimes if you've got a really bright bow, it can be a bit blinding, and maybe a dark string is better. So play around with these things and be sensible when it comes to your string choice and your bow choice. It might look great having matching string color and a matching bow color, but if you put the string on the riser, it's going to be pretty useless. So have a look and find a combination that works well. So question number 3 was actually from a coach asking for some advice, and they said basically, I've got some archers and very often they'll shoot 4 to 5 arrows that are good per end, and then maybe 1 or 2 arrows that will be in the blue. What is the cause of this, and also how do I put some training in to stop this happening? So there are a few key things with this before we dive into preventing it, and we have to work through them step by step. First of all, identify if there's any commonality between the errors. Are the errors always the last 2 arrows per end? Maybe it's fatigue. Are they always low right blue, or maybe they're high right blue, or maybe they're left blue? So try and find any sort of pattern between the errors and where they're made. 2, now you want to identify what is causing these errors if there's a common theme here. If there's not a common theme, then you need to just work on bringing the general group together. If there's common errors, then you need to identify the cause. For example, if they're the last 2 arrows every end, it might be fatigue. If the arrows are always high right, but you can't seem to find any other pattern, maybe you should check that the middle finger is not pushing the arrow off the rest. And these are just some examples. Maybe if the errors are always to the left, you should check the execution on release and see if there's a common mistake the archer's making with their bow hand or the draw hand. So these are some of the things you can check. Once you see the specific pattern of where they go, then you can check the cause, and it's much, much easier to find that. Another really common cause of errors with things like this is simply just the equipment, especially if it's an intermediate level archer or even a beginner archer at a club. Make sure you check the arrows are the same, the fletches are the same, the nocks are the same. Even if you're an advanced archer and you have consistent mistakes, make sure you check your arrows specifically and then also other parts of your equipment. But if there's a difference on the arrow, maybe the nock is slightly cracked, maybe the ears of the nock are slightly more separated, so it's a different fit on the string, or maybe you've shot the nock and there's a little nick in it, but you then haven't spotted it and you've carried on shooting, this can make a big difference downrange on the target as to where the arrow goes. So So definitely check that as well. Finally, to identify the cause of these common errors, if you have the opportunity, it can be great to use a high-speed camera. This can help show you in detail, in slow motion, every single thing that's going on in the shot, and it's particularly useful to look at things such as arrow clearance, maybe the release in high speed, any clearance issues with the string on the arm or the chest and stuff like that. So if you have the option, a high-speed camera is great for this, and even on phones and specifically some DSLRs these days, you can just use the high-speed function on there and it's fast enough to see some of these mistakes as well. Question number 4 was, how and when do you aim? Now, this sounds like a very simple question, but it's actually a little bit more involved, and I want to make sure I explain this fully so that everyone can understand this and it helps you in your shot. There shouldn't be any aiming until at least the setup position. So you do not want to be trying to aim when you lift the bow. It's very common maybe to see archers when they first start archery, they'll just lift the bow and aim from here and then try and draw and get to anchor and get to full draw, and they've already aimed. This is not going to help your shot, and all it's going to make you want to do is to lift the bow, try and put the sight on the middle, and then when you draw, you're going to try and not move that sight. And that's going to compromise how you draw the bow, because when you draw the bow, the sight will probably move, and that's fine. So make sure that you're not aiming too early, and it should be at least at the setup position. Some people, you can start briefly aiming at the setup position. What I mean by this is you open and raise the bow, you come up and you get to your setup position, and at that position, for some people, you can briefly have a very, very rough aim. And what I mean by that is maybe the sight will be somewhere above the gold. And the reason you want it above the gold is so that when you come into your anchor, you can slightly lower the sight and just come on to aim. So this isn't very conscious aiming, you're not deliberately putting it there at that point, but it's a good place so that you can then draw and come into aim later on. The aim should be, again, like I said, slightly high. For some people it might be black high, some people it might be slightly above the target. It just depends, but it's not essential to aim at this point either. This is the earliest that you should start aiming. Now, for a lot of people, the real aiming would start once you're into your anchor position, you've reached real full draw, and then you're ready to expand, and that's when you would start aiming. But there's a key thing to mention here. When you do start this aiming, it is not a deliberate aim and you're not stopping anything else you're doing. You are not coming into anchor, getting to real full draw, expanding, and then stopping everything and aiming to then shoot. That's not what you're doing. What you're doing is you're going through your step process, you're going through your shot, and once you're at real full draw, you can then get the best aim that you can whilst you're doing the rest of your shot. And you simply get as good an aim as you can while you're doing your expansion and the rest of your shot. And that must stay the same, the timing must stay the same, the motion must stay the same. If you stop the direction or stop the motion at any point, then this is gonna ruin your shot. Now, 2 more points I wanna mention about the aiming, and this is that you're not physically looking at the sight pin and trying to place it on the gold. The best way to aim is to look at the gold, allow the sight pin to be in a soft focus, and then just allow your body to move the sight pin towards the gold. So that's the first point. You're looking at the gold and the sight pin is blurry, not the other way around. The second point is that the aiming is not a static 2D thing. You're not just holding the sight pin here and stabilizing it in this plane like this. You need to think of aiming as 3-dimensional. You've got this plane here, but then you've also got the plane toward the target. So you're not just holding the aim, you're directing the aim into the target. And this will make a really, really big difference because it will make sure you keep the direction after the release as well, and you keep that intensity and don't stop the movement during the shot. So that was a quick fire Q&A for those 4 questions. If you like the video, definitely hit that like button and make sure to let your friends know about the video as well. If you've got any questions, importantly, be sure to leave a comment down below and I'll answer these questions in a future video so that this can give some more information as well. Finally, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, be sure to click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so that you get updated when there are new videos and you don't miss out on any new content. As always, the links for social media are down below, And thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.